and welcome to this a bit more nerdy deep dive into a very fun topic, and that is 3D printing graphs from SAS Visual Analytics. Now, a graph like this is of course a bit fun, and it's certainly a gimmick, but moving things into the third dimension and making them something that you can physically interact with can be a great conversation starter. So why not do it? And also, why not do it as a heat map? It doesn't really show up on camera, but in person you can see the height differences in here. So instead of having a normal heat map that shows color differences through the values, we have height to show the differences using the third dimension. These two are 3D prints that are directly generated out of SAS Visual Analytics. I'm going to show you how I have done this, and if you're interested, then leave a like, leave a comment, or message me directly to let me know if you think I should open source this project. It has been a fun one, so let me know. So this is the application. I call it Graph to 3D Print. We can also just upload normal SVG files, but we are going to be focusing on the integration with SAS Visual Analytics. Now, in order to make use of this application, I have to provide my VIA URL to it. And then I can click the connect button. Now, it pulls in, using the SAS Content SDK, a view of SAS content that I can navigate. We are going to be using this little tree on the left-hand side to go into one of my favorite folders. And then I can click on a report, and using the SAS Visual Analytics SDK, I'm loading in the report that I can interact with. So let's scroll down a bit so we can see the report better. Now, graphs like this or that feature a lot of text are very hard to 3D print well. So instead, I'd rather focus on smaller, narrower data that you can easily 3D print. So I'm going to switch to the categories tab here. And now I can right click my object of desire, and I have menu items added to it. This is again a feature of the SAS Visual Analytics SDK where you can augment what you see in this menu and add your entire own custom functions. In my case, I built a custom function that takes this currently selected and interacted with VA object and turns it into an SVG file using a SAS via REST API. Now I'm going to click Send to FreeMF Builder. FreeMF is a common 3D printing file format that allows you to do multicolored prints. You can also do this with STL, but then you are normally limited to just one color. So that's why I chose the FreeMF standard. Up here, you have two different modes. There is an explicit one if you have heat map data where you translate color into height. Then you have a couple of options to work through the FreeMF file to really configure it, like how thick do you want the base to be? How high off the base do you want the graph to be? Then you can also scale these graphs, because by default, these images are quite large with almost 2000 by 1000 pixels. So we have to scale it. The default one here is 0.2, which perfectly fits on a lot of very common 3D printers that have a printing bed of around 255 millimeters. Then you can also give it some padding, so give it some distance from the outside. And you can see on here in this visual, and we can zoom in, we have the text still on there. There is a checkbox to just remove it and give the graph a bit more room on the page if you are into that. And then you see the ability for the base, the text. You can't recolor them. They are hard-coded to be white and black. That is mostly for readabilities. You can go in here and override the blue and the pink, but of course you would have to color match it with your 3D printer anyways. We then go ahead and download the FreeMF file that we can work with. And now I'm going to be cutting to a video, a very short time lapse that showcases how this graph was 3D printed. All right, I hope you enjoyed this fun little dive into how you can turn your flat 2D graphs into 3D interactive objects that you can hand out, that you could put on your desk or into a cupboard maybe, and just have fun with. Again, if you think this is something you would like to play around with, let me know and I'll make sure to open source this project. See you next time. Bye bye.